Now, are you able to answer my question as to why do we recover only a small part of salt from the mixture of salt and sand that we had initially taken? Yes, it is so because the quantity of salt was more than the required quantity, and thus it formed a saturated solution. And due to this, the undissolved salt, it remained mixed with the sand particles and could not be recovered. And now my next question to you is, how can we recover this undissolved salt from the sand mixture? Well, we can recover the undissolved salt from the sand by using large quantity of water. So here I am going to add more quantity of water. And that's because water will dissolve all the salt particles now. So now what we are going to do is, now that we have added the water, I stir it. I'm stirring it so that the undissolved salt, it gets dissolved into the water. And now students, we are going to leave this mixture undisturbed for a certain duration of time so that the sand particles, they settle down at the bottom. And thereafter, we are going to decant this solution. And now that we can see that the sand particles have settled down at the bottom, while the salt, it has got dissolved in the extra amount of water that we had added. Now we can decant the solution. So now we are going to pour this water into this glass. And there you can see, now we have obtained the salt solution here. And what is the next method that we are going to apply? Yes, so we will evaporate the solution such that the salt will be now separated from this sand mixture. So students, now my next question to you is, suppose you don't have sufficient quantity of water to dissolve all the salt in the mixture. Then how will you dissolve the salt in water without making it saturated? Well, in that case, we will heat the solution. And to understand this concept, let us carry out another activity. So here is a beaker which is filled with some water. Now keep on adding salt to it and stir it till it cannot dissolve any more salt in it. So let's do it. So there you can see that on stirring, the salt, it starts dissolving in water, which means the solution is still not saturated. And so I'll add more salt to it. And once again you can see that the salt has dissolved in water, which means we need to add more salt to this to make it saturated. So let me add more salt. And now I can see that even on stirring, the salt is not getting dissolved completely in this water. So now let's just leave the solution like this for some time and let's see whether we find any salt settled at the bottom of the beaker. The solution is said to be a saturated solution. Now add a small quantity of salt to this saturated solution and heat it over the flame. So now I take some more salt, add this to the solution, and now we are going to heat it over the flame. And we are going to just gently stir this solution. So what can you observe here? Can you see that the undissolved salt, which was initially settled at the bottom of the beaker, it has started to dissolve now. And at this point of time, even if we add more salt, then also it will dissolve. Let's try it out. And again, let's just stir this a bit. So there you can see that even if I added more salt to it, it has started to dissolve. And in this way, we can keep on adding salt and stir it to dissolve it in this solution. And if we now allow this solution to cool, then the entire amount of salt will remain dissolved in the solution. So we leave it to cool down a bit. Now this is what we call a supersaturated solution. Now what will happen if we add a few crystals of salt to this cooled solution? Well, let's try doing it. And now after adding these crystals to the solution, let's leave it for a couple of days like this. So after a couple of days, here you can observe that adding more salt crystals to the supersaturated salt solution causes the excess salt to begin forming crystals. And these salt crystals, they settle down at the bottom of the beaker. So formation of crystals proves that the solution is supersaturated.